computer.
It's really good.
And I would like to
Show us.
I can
show
see
this thing now. Show the video panel.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Because in the recording, if I don't have, nope, that was not what I wanted. Okay, this will have to do. In. There we go. There we go. That'll do. No, nope, that's not the one I wanted to pin. Sorry. I should turn off the recording because I'm in a state of confusion. There we go. I think that'll do. All right, that'll work. Okay, so now one last thing. All right, now we're ready to go. Let's do this all over again. Sorry, now that we're recording. Caroline, what are the phases?
So we have the layout.
You do the layout.
We need
Good.
to determine the state.
And then we determine the state.
And then we need to see the events.
The events. Now with multiple components on the same page, the layout is going to include which things should be components and which things get grouped into or just HTML elements grouped into a single component. So you kind of have to figure that out. You have to look at something and you say, like for example, this header right here, should that be an entire component or should it just be an an H1 with maybe you combine this H1 and these P's into a single component. So you'd have to look at that and kind of figure out how you want to do that and get that to work. So that's the thing that makes it different from when you have multiple components than when you have one component, is you have to first of all figure out what your components are. Then for each component, you can figure out the layout of each component. Okay? All right.
How do you figure that out? Because I mean, when I was doing the exercises, I was having a little trouble figuring out like what should be the parent and like, I mean, not the parent, but like, I mean, if I should make that a component or if I should, have that or like specifically like, certain things, if that should go in the parent component or the child component. That is what I'm trying to ask.
Yes, that is correct. That's a lot of you just get from experience. It's hard to say what the basic rules are. So you kind of want to think about it. When we go through the solution for this, then we'll talk about various different ways to break the components up.
Okay, got it.
And I don't know, it's kind of hard to give a general rule for how you should do it because it really just depends on what you see, and a lot of it depends on what you learn through experience and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, Robert. Oh, is it because if we find something share the same functionality?
Usually the thing is that you want to break it up. I'll go over it more when we get there and go through it. But usually you want to break it up into things that are shareable, reusable. So you kind of think, okay, this is reusable, this is reusable. For example, that this whole exercise you're doing, you could do in one single component.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem with that. But then you don't end up with reusable parts and you end up with one great big huge long complicated component. So you kind of have to, based on your experience, kind of figure out what you're doing there. Okay. All right. So Noah, how does data flow in React?
Data flow in React. So the data we have like that is divided into multiple. The data is divided into multiple files.
No, what I mean is you've got data that you want to get from one component to a different component. You want to pass data from one component to the other one. How does that go? Data in React always flows from parent to child. Yeah, it always flows from parent to child. Siblings are not allowed to talk to each other. Children are not allowed to talk to their parents as far as passing data. It's not allowed. Again, this is the teenage thing, You get your teenage kids, they don't talk to each other. They don't talk to you. You talk to them. So if if teenager 1 wants to tell teenager 2 something, what do?
They check in with their parent.
They tell the parent and the parent tells the other teenager. Okay, so that's how it goes. If you have 2 children on the page and they both need to share information, the only way to get that same information to both children is to pass it from the parent to both children. Okay, so data can only flow top down from parent to child. It cannot go across from child to child, and it cannot go from child back up to parent. Is that clear? That's a very important thing to keep in mind. All right. So then, Rakaya, suppose a child has data that it wants its parent to know about. What can it do since it can't pass it to them?
The events basically, like the events trigger a change of state in the parent. So if there's like an on change event in the child and the change handler event, like the handle change event is in the parent, then that's how they interact.
Exactly. The only way a child can cause something to change in the parent is to trigger an event, is through an event. So they have an event like an on change event, and they call the on change event and pass it the data they want the parent to have. So that's the only thing that a child can do to cause the change to happen in the parent. It doesn't actually directly modify the parent. All it does is call the function, and then the parent has to decide what actually happens. So again, it's like teenager says, "Hey, I've got some homework to do today," and the parent and says, "Here, parent, here's the homework." Or sorry, my sibling has homework they're supposed to do today. The teenager passes the homework up to the parent. The parent is under no obligation to tell the sibling that the homework is due today and has to be worked on. Okay, that's the parent's choice. The parent may decide that because the sibling's being such a wonderful child, they don't have to do their homework today. Okay, or whatever. Okay, so it just all the child can do is tell the parent, "Here's some data. Hey, I found some data. I got some data from the user. Here it is." And then the parent has to decide what to do with it. Okay? That is a requirement of how React works. Because of these 2 requirements, data only flows from parent to child, and children can only talk up to their parents. That puts a lot of constraints on how we design our React programs. Once you get used to it, it's pretty natural and it's not a big deal, but it is kind of it is an issue to keep in mind. Okay. There are newly created front-end frameworks that don't like that, and they try to find ways to fix it. But that's just the way React works. When you're working in React, data can only flow from the parent down, and children can only tell their parent through an event what is going on. Okay. All right. Any questions on these before I go into the problem itself? Yes, Caroline.
Yes, what is the difference between a parent and the wrapper of the children?
Same thing.
So the wrapper.
If a component wraps if one component wraps some other components, that wrapper is the parent of those other components. So whichever component in its return statement, whichever component puts the angle bracket component name down in there, that one the one that has the return statement is the parent, and the one inside the return statement is the child. Okay. That clear? Yeah.
This question, this is regarding the problem. You're gonna go over it right now.
I'm gonna go over it. So
just like quick thing, and imagine like if we have a body, okay, we have a body and there's inside the header section, we have a main and footer. So in this case, the header, if we want to make the header, for example, clickable. So it should only happens from the children to parent, right?
The header is the child. The child puts a click event, and then whoever rendered that header is the parent, and it listens to that click event, puts a handler on it.
So we're gonna pass to the child. We're gonna like make a function call in it if there's a handle click for them.
Yes, okay, so let's go over this. So here we go, this is what we're doing. We have this thing up here that flips around between, it's just text. It displays which, this whole thing that we're building is past a list of animals. Okay, and then the user selects which animal they want to have currently displayed. So the top one up here is the currently selected animal. This button goes to the previous animal in the list. Okay, in this case they're all alphabetical, so you can see it, but they won't always be. But if you click previous, then the current animal will go back one. If you click next, the current animal will go forward one. And if you click one of these buttons up here, this will select the index, this will select the animal that's at the index given here. So in this case, we have 6 animals we're passed. So we have 6 buttons here, and we labeled them 0 through 5, just the index. So if I click on the 3, then the animal at index 3 is the one that should be displayed up here. Okay. And we want the one that is currently selected to be highlighted down in this button list. So that's what we're building. So let's think about this. How many components should we build? So you know my answer because you've done the exercise, but there are a lot of different ways to break this down. So I just want your thoughts. How many components do we need for this?
4.
Name them.
Previous, next,
1, 2,
buttons,
3,
and the text displaying.
4. Okay. Is that going to work? When this gets clicked, how is this one going to find out to change?
The on-click event is going to respond to the list.
The on-click
array.
event, the event handler is going to be where? In which?
On the previous button.
No, the handler, the event handler.
Event handler.
The on-click event's going to be in the previous button. Where's the handler
Yes.
going to be? In what you said?
In the list array.
Sorry, a list array is data. It can't have a
I'm
handler.
sorry. Okay. No.
Okay.
To the parent?
Okay, so the parent has to do that. So let's think about this. What you said, if I got 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I click this button. How is this guy going to find out to change to the one at index 3?
By the use state of the parent.
So you didn't mention the parent. So there's actually a 5th component, the parent, in what you said. Okay, so there has to be a parent here because this and this share information. These guys share information. The only way they can share information is if you have a component that's their parent. So that's one thing that you can quickly decide on this. When you look at it, you say, okay, this one has to know the current selection. This one has to know the current selection. So therefore, these both have to share the state. So I must have a component that wraps the whole thing. Yeah, I have to have a parent component. Which in this case, I told you to name rotating banner. So we know we have one component called the rotating banner. Okay, any other alternative ways to break this down? Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm still confused about how you can still decide. They said something about sharing information.
This one and this one both have to know the currently selected element. Both of these have to know because this one has to highlight the element and this one has to display it. So since these two share information, if they're 2 separate components, they can't talk to each other and tell it. They have to have a parent. Okay, so if 2 components share information, they have to have a parent that wraps them and controls that information and to send back and forth. Okay. So we have to have a parent that wraps the whole thing. Parent didn't necessarily have to wrap those, but it makes sense for it to. Okay, any other choices on how to break this down?
I was thinking about making previous and next into one component.
Just with a label?
preview and next I was like thinking about preview and next with the text, the change text to be one
To be a
component,
prop.
one prop, and the
Yeah.
middle as a one prop with the text also.
Yeah, so you could do that. You could just create a button component. And then you have the parent own, you create a button component. So this is the one button, one instance of the button component called previous with the label name previous. This is a button component with the label name next. This is a button component with a label 0, button component label 1, and so on. So that's another way you could break it down.
And
Yeah.
that's in this situation, we would just put all of those buttons in the parent?
Yes, that's one way to do it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, any alternatives? Okay, I could see one component, two components, three components, four components, five components,
Oh,
six
wow.
components, seven components,
Wow.
8 components, 9 components. You could do it that way too. 9 different components. Okay, that one's kind of ugly because these are all buttons, and so they're all basically the same. Okay, so you could do that way. So lots of different choices on how you do this. And the way you go about it is just kind of you just kind of base on your experience and what you think seems good. You'll get a lot of experience doing this and building these, and so you'll build up that knowledge. So the way I would look at this though, is I look at this and I say, okay, I have to have a parent that wraps the whole thing. These could be the same button, but I think to start out, it'll be easier if I make these separate components, and then I might be able to figure out how to combine them into one. And then this kind of seems to operate as a whole. This operates as a whole unit. It just tells you which item is selected and lets you select a different one. And so it doesn't feel to me like they should be distinct components. So I feel like this whole indicator right here should be one single component. Because they operate together. They kind of operate all in one thing. So it just feels natural to me to make that one component. Okay. Yes.
So is it like similar to making a div as a parent for the whole 6 buttons?
Yes. Yep. Yep. So that's the other thing is you can put a div and then you could just put a loop loops through and add 6 buttons to a button list and display it that way. And that's actually how we'll implement it. Okay. All right. Is that okay? Any questions on the layout?
So would you make 2 components as in like 3 components, 1 parent and 2 children, or would you make 3 components as in for the 2 buttons and then the indicators would be like another component?
I would actually make 5 components.
Oh.
1 for the wrapper, for the parent, 1 for the display, 1 for the prev button, 1 for the next button, and 1 for the list of indicators, so whatever you want to call these.
Okay, so you wouldn't put the previous and the next in one component, one button component?
I would, and I actually will when we're done. I'll go and combine them. But when I'm sitting there wondering, are these going to be just one component? Or are they going to be 2?
Yeah.
I like to do it as separate ones. And then I look at the code and I say, you know what? These are really the same code, and I can turn these into one single component.
Okay.
So for illustration purposes, I'm going to do it as 5 components. Then when I'm done, I'm going to collapse these into 2 instances of the same component.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
And you wouldn't be doing that with the indicators, that you would leave.
Yes, you could then use that same button component for this. The difference though is that this one has to be told what color to do it, to highlight. And so that's a little bit more complicated. So this button is actually a little bit different than these 2 buttons because this button has a highlight color on it. You know, an optional highlight color.
Okay.
Okay, so but I'll probably do that one also. I'll probably show you how to do this as a button, how we can have one button that does all of these. And then I'll have the parent, the display, the button, and the indicators. I'll have only 4 components in that when I get done with it. But I'm going to start out with 5. Okay. Even if this is a button, I would rather have this totally controlled in one single component than have to have the parent figure it all out. I think that makes it more natural to me. I can take all the logic for this and I can stick it in one place. You know, how many there are and which one gets clicked and all that stuff. Seems like it's a good thing here. So even if this and this all share the same component, this one, I'll have used that button component to render each of these, but it will still be a single component. That clear? But you'll see that happen. To start out, I'm going to do 5 components. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so let me switch over to that. Oh no, my bad. I got here a little bit late and I didn't get this all set up. So let me do that. Close these guys. And go to my React moldable components. Open up the starter file. Oh, open up the solution. So I don't have to take the time to do that. I'm going to go to rotating banner though, and I'm going to leave this here and I'm going to delete everything inside of it. Return null. And I'm going to, I guess I'm going to, for now, just keep these guys. So, oh no, take it back. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to delete everything.
Well,
Okay, I'm going to delete everything and go like this. Okay, I'm just going to start from scratch. This okay?
Mhm.
This is what it looks like in the app. The app just has the list of animals, passes it in to the rotating banner as a prop. And shoot, I can see that I am
you're in a different branch.
React multiple components, solution, my app, and I have to do an install. Take the time to do that.
Well, but can I ask a question? What can we put items in array and the reading and the rotating banner?
So items is a prop for this rotating banner, and it's an array of strings. Okay.
Where we cannot like define the items in the.
No, I don't want you to do that because I want you to build a component that can be reused. If I define the items in here, then the only thing it can ever be used for is to display exactly those items. And that's ridiculous. I want a banner, a rotating banner that can be reused and display other things. And so this pattern, I'm forcing you to use over and over and over again because it's the pattern you have to use if you want your code to be reusable. Okay. All right. So let's see. Then, okay, I said they're going to be 5 components. Here's one of them. So I need 4 more. And I'm just going to, normally I would like you to put each component in a separate file, but for doing this in front of you, it's more efficient for me to do it all in one file. It actually it's actually not bad to have them all in one file. Usually what I will do when I'm doing this, multiple components on the same page, I'll do it all in one file. And then if I find that I want, oh, you know, that component I built, I want to reuse that one, then I'll take it and I'll move it into a separate file. That's usually how I work. But it's up to you. I kind of, in these exercises going forward, I'm kind of forcing you to create a new file for every component just because it's a good practice to have, good to get used to. But for now, for this, I'm just going to put them all in this same file. I won't yell at you if you do the same thing, but I would like you to get the practice of putting them in separate ones. So I'm going to have the banner, the rotating banner is the whole thing. The banner is just the animal that's currently being displayed, the item. And so it's going to take just an item, which is, and I need to have its props. I can't use props here because props is already used up there. And so I need to declare a separate props. This is another good reason to put it in a separate file. I'm going to call it banner props to keep it distinct from the main props. And it's going to take a single item, which is a string. Good. Okay, and return null. Good. Now I'm going to do the prev button. I'll just duplicate that for simplicity. Preve button props. I'm going to call this preve button. And it needs, it's just going to display itself. So as far as layout is concerned, it doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. And then I'm going to have something exactly the same, which is going to be the next button. And then I need something for all of the indicators. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so and I'll just use the name indicators. Indicator. It's kind of I don't know if I like that name or not. What does it need to know?
The amount of
The number of items.
Items.
Good. All right, do that for now. It's the number. And
Why?
because
Whoops.
that has to relate to the items array about how many we have items, so it can indicate.
Robert, well, why we need to use count and indicator props?
because of what Caroline said, we have to know how many buttons we want to display. Okay, all right, so there we go. That's just kind of a rough layout. So here I'm gonna then just render it. My rendering here, I'm gonna have, let me put it all in a div. I don't know if I need a div, but I'll do it anyway. Do I have any CSS? I don't think so. Okay, I'm gonna have the banner. Then I'm gonna have the
Next.
pre button. Then I'm gonna have the indicator. Then I'm gonna have the next button. And that's it. Did I call this indicators in the exercise?
Mm-hmm.
I keep wanting to say that as plural, so I must have.
Yes.
Okay, so banner, I need to pass it an item to display. So I need to say item equals, what should I do for now?
Items.
Items, which
Item.
one?
The array.
I can't pass it the whole array. It's an array of string.
Oh, just
I
that
can't pass an array
you can
to a string.
pass an index of your
Yeah.
choice.
So let's just pick one, do 0. Okay. Why is that complaining?
Because
Oh, because I
Sure.
forgot. I didn't put that right. Okay, there we go. Okay. Banner props. All right. Indicators needs to have a indicators props. Okay. Indicators needs to have a count. How many are there?
in total, there are 6 items, but we don't know that yet.
How do we know how many there are though? It's we know it.
Length property, items.length.
There we go. Excellent. Okay, good. There we go. So this is just, again, just kind of getting it here. I think I'm going to just, so we can just check the layout. I'm going to do div banner. Oh, I know this is going to be a button, so I just will put preve in here. I know this is going to be a button, so I just will go button next. So I want to run it so I can see it, and then I just do div indicators. Okay, so let me run it, npm run dev, open, and hopefully we get, okay, so yay, we got something going here. We have our banner, our preve, and our next buttons and our indicators. Okay, so we're getting there on the layout. Yes.
I know I'm still confused about why you chose count as a prop for the indicator.
Because I need to know how many to display. I don't want to hard code 6 in there. I don't want to loop from 0 to 6. I don't want to loop through the whole thing, or 6, because I want it to be able to grow and expand depending on how many items have been just passed to me. If somebody only passes me four strings, I want to have 4 buttons. Somebody passes me 8 strings, I want to have 8 buttons. Okay. All right. So here we go. let me do this. This looks kind of easy. This one is just going to be an array. Let's see. So I want to do a map. Oh, whoops, I don't have an array. I can't map.
Can you just create a for loop?
I guess I'll just create a for loop. Yep, that's probably the best way to do this one. So let me do const buttons equals, and then I'm going to do for let I equal 0, I less than count, I plus plus, and then I'm going to do buttons dot push button, and what's its label going to be?
Count.
I.
Index. Good. Yep. Okay, and then I'm going to display here the buttons like that. Okay, let's see how that went. Ooh, nice. We're getting there. Now on the banner's easy. Is it an H1 or is it a? It's an H1. Okay, we'll do an H1. And then what am I going to display here?
The item.
The item. Okay,
item
good.
0.
Yay, it looks even better. Okay, I got some CSS cleanup I could do, but I'm not going to. And so it's looking good.
Can we
Okay.
choose like an item 0, for example, or item 1, 2?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do one better than that. Let's do 4. Okay, so now we're at 4. We got elephant. That's cool. Okay. Now I'm going to claim that I've got the basic layout done. I've figured out how many components there are. I've got each one of them rendering properly. So I've got the basic layout. Happy? That's phase 1. So we're going to go on to phase 2, which is
State.
state. Okay, what was your question, Noah?
Can we use, instead of for loop, can we use map? I tried yesterday.
There's no array to map on. I've had some people pass the items down here so they can map on the items. So you could do that, but there's nothing to map on. So there's no array. You can only map if you have an array. So that's why we pass count and do a for loop. All right. Okay, so now phase 2 state. What state do we need to manage in this thing? What state do we need?
The counting state.
The counting state?
A state that's going to keep track of the count with the item.
The number of items?
It's going to keep track.
That's a prop already. I already have that. I don't need state for that. Which one does this display? Which one does this highlight?
This string, the array.
And when I click, it flips, it changes, and it stays put. So every time I render, if I were to re-render this, I would have to know which item I'm displaying and which one is selected. So what's my state? What does the state need to know?
The current index.
Yes, the current index in my array that I'm displaying. And that current index will be used to decide which item to display and which button to highlight. Right? Okay, so that's my state. The state is going to be the current index. Might as well call it that. Const current index set current index equals use state. And we as well start at 0. Okay, now when I do, how does that change my code?
You have to replace current index with 0.
Yep, current index. So far, doesn't change anything else. Okay, so let's take a look. We're still looking good. If I change this state now to something else, for, let's see, A, B, C, D, 0 to D, E, elephant. It should switch to the elephant. Okay, the elephant showing. Okay. All right. That's good. I've got that, but now I need to know down here, I need to highlight the one that corresponds to the elephant. Okay, how do you think I can do that?
I'm going to use the on-click event.
Nope, no events yet, just state.
Just state.
Yeah, just state. So if I look at these indicators, somehow in here, I have to know which one to display. You know what? I have a bug in here that you guys didn't catch for me yet. What's the bug? Who knows it?
Something with the button.
Uh-huh. If I show the console, what am I gonna see?
An error.
No, not an error.
You don't have a key.
There we go.
Oh.
Each child should have a unique key. Okay, thank you. All right, so we need to put the key in here. Key equals, what should I use for the key?
The I.
Just use I. That will work because they don't change the button, number of buttons. I don't insert and remove buttons, so I can use the index. Usually if you use the index and you remove one, then the index of all the items changes.
Oh.
And so it's not usually a good idea to use the index. You have to think hard about, is that really the right thing to do? Here we can get away with it, but you can't always get away with it. So just be aware of that. Usually you should do an ID. There's not an ID in these things.
But then if we were to do an ID, then we would have to change the whole array into an
Yes.
object with the key and the item name.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's usually what you'll have. Going forward from here on out, that's what you'll have.
okay.
Okay, so I got that bug fixed. Let's just flip back and make sure. I've got that warning, but let me refresh. And now it's not there anymore. Okay, good. Okay. So how am I going to decide which one to highlight? Who knows which one I should highlight?
Who from
Yeah,
the children?
which component knows what I should highlight?
The current index.
Yep, the current index is the one I should highlight. Who knows it?
The parent.
Right.
the planner.
Yeah, only the parent knows, so the parent has to pass it in. So I'm gonna have to add a prop here so that I can pass that information in. So let me go here, down here, and let me add a prop. Let me just say selected.
So this is how we are now sending the information from the parent to the child.
Exactly. Data is going from parent to child by passing it as a prop. It's exactly right. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to pass the selected one in here. What am I going to do with it?
You're gonna move it into the.
If I'm displaying the button that corresponds to the one that's selected, then I want to change its background color to light blue. That's what I want. Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
Could you just repeat what you just said about the data going from parent to child by passing what I just missed?
Passing props. That's how a parent passes data to a child, is in a prop. So I'm creating a prop, the selected item. I should probably call it, selected. So I'm creating a prop here called selected. This is the parent's going to pass this information to me, so I know which one to highlight. I can't know on my own which one to highlight because I don't have access to that array and to that state. It's not me. You know, I'm the dumb teenager. I know nothing. You have to tell me. So the parent tells the indicators prop by passing the parent tells the indicators component by passing it as a prop. Okay, that's always how data flows. It flows from the parent to the child through props. Okay, so now things get a little bit interesting. How am I going to do the background color?
Inline styling.
Inline styling is the easiest way. So to do inline styling, we haven't talked about how inline styling works in React yet. In inline styling, you pass to set styles. The way that React has decided to let you set styles is you pass the style prop an object. So you're going to pass this guy an object, and that the keys of that object are going to be the CSS names, and the values are going to be the CSS values. Okay. So for example, if I wanted to set the background color, I would pass an object that has a key named background color and a value, which is the color I'm going to display, which will be a string like light blue. Okay.
Is it gonna be used with the key, right? This is how we're gonna know, we're gonna compare.
No, it doesn't get used with the key. It gets used with the index. If the index is equal to selected, then I'm going to set it light blue. Otherwise, it's going to stay the same.
So why are we using key?
Because React requires everything to have a key when it's in a list.
Okay.
All right. So how do I pass an object in to these curly braces? I could create an object up here and pass it in. But I want to inline it. So how do I put an object? How do I create a literal object?
Another curly brace.
You put curly braces in. So I put in the curly braces.
Because right now it was just JSX, the first curly brace, right? It
Yes,
was
the
just
first curly
JSX.
brace is JSX. I'm going to pass in something, so a JavaScript expression for the value.
JavaScript.
And the second one says I'm going to create an inline literal object, and that's what I'm going to pass in. So you end up with these double curly braces. Okay. Now for the styles, I said I want to do background color. What's this? The CSS selector for background color
Background.
or
color.
attribute background
But you have-
color like that. That's the key, and the value is going to be light blue, comma. But wait a minute, I'm getting an error. How come?
Because you have to have it camel case, not just. a
Okay.
dash.
I could. You'd say, well, okay, just put quote marks around this. And React could have done that. React could have said, you just put quote marks around it, and that's how we do it. But they decided that this was ugly and they didn't like this. So they said, we want it to be just a single string. So they made a rule. The rule is, are these things called CSS selectors or there's, I thought the selector was like for the class name.
The selector is the class.
This is a property or an attribute. Do you remember?
property.
Property. Okay, so the CSS property, if the CSS property name has a dash in it, we will remove the dash and make the next letter uppercase. That's just the rule that they came up with. So you can always tell what it's supposed to be if you know the CSS property. Then you look at it and you just remove the dash and replace it with an uppercase. The next letter with an uppercase. Okay, so that's how you do background color. Yes.
I have a question, Robert. Why is it simpler to do it like this in an inline style than using the class name?
Oh, sometimes you want to dynamically change the styling. And
it
so
would be more complicated if we use the class name. You
you could do it as a class name. You could go in and say, I'm going to create a highlighted class name and have it be background color there. And then I could say class name equals I equals selected, etc. You could do it that way. But I'm doing it this way so I can show you how to do it with inline styling. Sometimes it's convenient to have inline styling and to be able to compute the styling and just put it in like this.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you mean by inline styling? By putting it at the same line, right?
The style tag. I mean by doing it as using the style tag. Okay. So that's often that's a convenient way to do styling in React is to do a
Inline.
it is to use the style tag and do that. And all the same rules apply as you have in an HTML where style tags override classes and everything else. So all those still apply. You do get a lot of people who get annoyed with you if you use the style tag in React, just like they do if you use it in HTML. I mean, I've heard Sean tell you, don't ever use style because it has all these weird behaviors. In React, it's often convenient to use it. Okay, and so you can do that. Okay.
If
Yes.
you want to do it inside the CSS file, what we would do?
You'd create a class named, highlight or something like that. And then you would programmatically decide whether or not to apply that class
Then
name.
you would have to do the different, if it was selected.
Yeah, you
as-
say if
if
I
it
equals
was-
selected, then add the class name,
if
otherwise
it's-
no.
Oh,
So
Okay.
this is faster.
Okay. Okay, so but there's this way too. So again, it's just, at this point, it's a matter of style. That was an awesome pun. Anyway, it really just depends on what you like. Okay?
Robert, But
Okay.
then, what about for the CSS rules then? What happens if we, for example, style our children components like this? And then now we want to apply to the parents some styling.
Yeah,
we
well, in
use
that case, you'll
class-
probably want to flip to class names and so on. So all the rules that you learned on the junior side still apply, and you still have to worry about.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, yeah, all of the class, style tag overrides class name and so on. So
Okay,
you have to keep all that in mind. In this case, this is just a nice convenient way to do it, and it allows me to teach you how React does styles. Okay. So with the, so you end up with a double curly brace. And the CSS property, if it has a dash, it becomes mixed case. Okay. All right, so now I want to say, what I really want to say is I want to say if I equals selected, then light blue. Else, I'm going to do undefined so that it just goes reverts back to that. And why is selected red? Who knows what I forgot to do? Why am I getting selected red?
You forgot to pass it on line 47. Like the-
Exactly. I do that a lot. It's kind of annoying that I have to put it in twice. That's just one of the downsides of TypeScript. TypeScript's a great language, but it's not perfect. And so there we go. Now I'm hoping that if I flip back, oh, it's not blue. What did I forget? Oh, I have an error up here. What's my error?
Pass it here too, right?
I forgot to pass in selected. So selected is going to equal what?
Oh, it has to be inside or?
What's the value of selected going to be?
current index.
Current index. Okay, good. Now let's go back and look. Hey, is that awesome or what? Now, if I go back and change my state to 2, 0, 1, 2, ABC, so I should see the C, whoops, save, and caterpillar and a 2.
Wow.
Okay,
Can I see that the condition you did on in the ternary?
right there.
It's
If I is selected, the background's going to be light blue. If it's not, it's going to be undefined, which means just revert to default. The default background color. Okay. Did you study ternaries over the weekend?
I was doing that exercise.
All right. Remember your ternaries.
Yes.
If this expression is true, the first expression is returned. If this is false, then the second expression is returned. Okay, so if I equals selected, then background color gets the value light blue. If I is not selected, then the background color gets undefined. Yes.
I have a question, Robert, about how you just pass the current index into the prop
Up above?
up above,
Yeah.
into the line 20 indicators count,
Uh-huh.
and then selected current index.
Yep.
So
Select is the
what's-
name of
what's
the prop.
What is React now reading over there? Selected?
Selected is the name of the prop.
Yes, this I understand.
Okay. Current index is the value of the state.
Yes.
So whatever value current index has, that's what gets passed into selected.
So then it goes and reads the selected functionality of what selected should be doing, what the selected prop should be doing. That's what React sees. Oh,
No,
we
React
have a
just sees,
select.
React just replaces this with selected equals 2. So selected is 2, so we come down here, selected is 2, selected is 2, and we go through our loop with selected equal to 2.
Okay.
This is the way all the curly brace always works when we're passing props. It's the same thing as this one. Count is equal to items not length, which is 6. So count is equal to 6 and selected is equal to 2. Those are the props that get passed into our indicators. So here count is equal to 6 and selected is equal to 2.
Right, and then I'm just saying that the selected is going to know, oh, because when we reach the current index in our indicators, then the selected returnary will become activated.
So yes, we loop through this thing, count times, incrementing I each time. When I gets to be 2, then we return light blue, otherwise we return undefined. Okay, that's how the ternary works.
Right.
So React doesn't know any of this. Our code knows it.
Oh,
We know it. We write the code so it does it.
well, yes, but I'm saying that it's getting the, okay, I see.
Okay. All right, good. So I'm gonna say we're done with state. We know we have our state declared up here. And we changed it and we see that the display still looks right. So I think we've taken into account the state everywhere. Okay, so now we're done with phase 2. What's next? Phase 3. What's phase 3? Events. All right, what events do we have to worry about?
On click.
On click what?
The,
On click on next, on click on previous, and on click on the indicators.
Yep, so there's an on click here, an on click there, and a click on one of these these indicators. Good. So there's three events we have to worry about, one here, and one on one of these. So they're all buttons, which is kind of convenient. So let's go do that. I'm going to do these two first because they're the easiest. So here we go. We're going to do prev. So how do I do an event? When I add an event to a component, what do I need to do first?
Add it to the type.
Yes, I add an event handler prop. I add a prop.
You have to,
So the prop, I'm just going to call this on prev because that's what I want to have happen. They click the previous button, so I want it to be on prev. What data type is it?
on click.
What data type
A
in the
function.
TypeScript?
it's void. Void. It's a void.
It's, well, what kind of JavaScript beast is it? Is it a number or a string?
Event.
Yeah. So
Event.
It's a
Handler.
function.
It's a function.
that function.
Okay, it's a function.
Function.
Okay, event handler props are
It's a
functions.
callback function.
Yes, it's callback function. An event handler prop is a callback function. If that's the phrasing that works for you, that's great. Okay, it's a callback function. So, and it's going to be usually the event handler props are functions that return void. In other words, don't return anything. And in this case, I don't need to pass anything from my parent, from my child to my parent. All I need to do is just tell it was clicked, right?
Can we use it inside? So why you want to pass it from the parent to child function? Can we use it inside the actual component?
Use what?
Like using, for example, using on click. Like I declare like directly on the child component instead of passing the.
Okay, you want me to do the on click here?
Yes.
Okay, what am I going to do here? The button, the child, this prev button does not have access to the state up there. It can't modify the state. It can't call the state handler. It doesn't know what to do. It's a stupid teenager. Doesn't know what to do. So the prev buttons, all it can do is say, hey, I got clicked. That's the whole discussion we had earlier. This guy, the button does not have access to anything inside the parent. It can't see it. It doesn't know about it. As far as it's concerned, it doesn't exist. It cannot modify that state. The only thing it can do is tell the parent something happened.
Display. Okay.
And that, well, it just says the parent, it just tells the parent, I got clicked. And then the parent has to figure out what to do.
Oh, wow.
Okay, the button just says, I got clicked, and then the parent figures out what to do.
Oh, thank you.
So how do I tell the parent that I got clicked?
By displaying the own.
How do I tell my parent I got clicked?
Call the event handler.
I call the event handler. Okay. Let me do something that you guys will probably do. On prev, I'm going to call my event handler. So the button gets clicked. I'm going to call the event handler prop. Look right?
No,
What's wrong with it?
it's not a callback now.
Yeah, now it's actually, I'm calling this function and whatever it returns is what I'm putting in here. It returns void, so I'm assigning void to on click. And on click, you look at this and the reason it's red there is on click says, what are you doing? Type void is not assignable to my event handler prop. Can't do that. What are you doing? Okay. So you could do this. This is review, I hope, because we've gone over this, but I've learned that just because I tell you once doesn't mean you remember. If I tell you twice, you might remember, but probably not. If I tell you 65,000 times, you might remember. Okay, so I'm going to tell you over and over and over again. This is a review again. So I could put an arrow function in here, and the arrow function calls there. That works. You're confused by that?
Well, I'm upset about it because how can the on click? It just has its own functionality.
On click belongs to the button.
I understand, and it just deals with,
On click says, take this function and set it as the event handler for the button.
wow.
Okay, that's what on
forever
click
to
does.
figure out.
It says
Yeah.
take this function and set it as the event handler, just like you do in the junior side. You
Mhm.
just event, and you say, you know,
You are
button dot register event handler and pass it this function.
That's
That's
it.
exactly what it's doing. Okay, so it's taking this function and assigning it as the event handler on the button. So now when the button gets called, this function gets called. Okay, so an easier way to do this is to
Just put the function, the name as is, right?
just put it there. This doesn't always work. Just keep that in mind. It doesn't always work.
Yeah, that was
Okay,
asking.
so that's the easiest way to do it.
I was gonna say.
Okay, so I can do that, and then I can do the same thing here for next, only I'm gonna call it on next. I'm gonna go here. And I'm gonna select the word prev, do Command
It's
D, and
basically
type
by
next.
doing that, we're just activating it.
And
All
I'm gonna
button,
go
it will be an
here.
event that's going to handle the click event by on clicking. That's all. We're not actually passing the children anything.
Yeah, that's a good
That's
way.
why.
Activating it, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
whatever language it takes to get it to sink in, use that. I'm not going to argue with your language if it works for you. And it's an accurate description of what's going on. It's not the language I think of, but that's just the way I learned it and the way I think about it. So you do it whatever works best for you. Now, last thing I need to do, see, I go over here and I click the pre button and the next button. I click, nothing's happening because I didn't put in an event handler. So let's go to prev. On prev equals, what do I want to have happen when?
On pre.
Can
Okay,
pass this-
what do I want to have happen
On
when the pre button gets clicked? What do I want to have happen?
Oh, we're
It's
going to be
saying-
setting the current index.
On
Now we're
the-
able to access the,
Yes, you can only access it in the parent.
that's.
See, that's the whole thing. You can only access it in the parent. This guy doesn't have access to that state, only the parent does. So I just tell the parent, hey, I got clicked on, you better do something. And then up here it says, oh, I know what to do because I own the state. I know how to modify the state. So how do we modify this state? We put an arrow function in here or a regular handler function I could create. And what am I going to do? Set current index to what value? I want to go to the previous one. I set the index was 3. What do I want to set it
Give
to?
us a count -1. Go
Yep,
back.
current index -1. Okay. Let's do the same thing here. Whoops.
Current +1.
All right. And then we'll figure out a problem that I'm sure Rakaya is anticipating. Okay, cool. Now I go pre, and look at that, it goes back, and I go next, and it goes up. And because it's the parent that's changing the state and passing the state into both places, then this knows to update, this knows to update, because the parent told them to. The parent said they clicked on this button, I modified the state, and I told these guys to modify it to update themselves. See how that goes?
You just go to the function called again.
It's just the parent doing it.
Okay, here's the bug. If I hit next and I hit next again, what happens? Oh,
Need to reset.
I hit pre.
Need to reset.
Okay. Yep, I need to wrap. Do you remember how to make these things wrap? Kind of ugly. Let me do this one first. It's the easiest. So I do this and I use what to make it wrap?
Percentage.
Yep, the modulus operator. And I'm going to pass in the number of items, which is items.length. And then this one, I have to add plus items.length. And now I do the modulus of items.length. Okay. There we go. Okay.
Why you are putting plus item?
The problem is that -1 mod 6 is equal to -1. So it doesn't go into the range that we want. So negative numbers are dealt with weird in modulus arithmetic. So if you add items.length though, then it guarantees that this will always be positive. So if this is -1, you add 6, then it gets to 5. Then your modulus works properly. So that's just the way it goes. That's the trick to use. You can always put ifs and if else's and ternaries or whatever it is you want to do. I like to do this just because I think it looks nice and I love math. Okay.
You just leave it.
So now if I go pre, it wraps. If I do next, it wraps. Okay.
You could just leave it.
It felt like going back to school when I did this.
Good. Are you a math lover?
No,
No.
I left math like in school, so yeah, been a while.
All right, cool. Okay, so now we have one more event we have to handle, and that's the icky one. So we have to do the indicators. I haven't done anything with clicking on these guys. This one takes a little bit of this is a little bit of a challenge. What do we want to have happen? If I click on 5, what do we need? I click on the 5. What do we need the parent to do?
Highlight the number
Need the
5.
parent to update the index, the current index, so that the banner item changes, the color and the number changes.
Yes. So if I click the 5, I want the parent to set current index to 5. So then this will switch to the 5th one and the 5th one will highlight. If I click this one, I want the parent to set the current index to 1. And then this will then switch to B, whatever the B one is, and then this will highlight. Okay. Is it a bangle? I can't remember what the B one is. Okay. All right. So how am I going to do that? I have my indicators. I need to add an on-click to each one of these buttons I've rendered. And I want that on-click to get passed up to the parent, but I have to tell the parent which button got clicked. The parent, if all it gets is an on-click, it doesn't know which one it was. So we can demonstrate that.
So we have to pass it a new index into the set current index.
Good, excellent. So let's see, let's do it in steps. So first of all, I'm gonna do an event. I'm gonna do on select. And it's gonna be, and if I make it a void function like this, like I usually do, then I do on select. And then I'm gonna add an on click to my button here. On click equals on select. So it looks so good. It looks just like what we did before. So now let's go up here and let's add our select handler. On select equals, I'm going to put an arrow function in there. And I don't know what to do here. Sorry, let me wrap this so we can see it. So remember, just like below, I'm going to do a set current index. And I'm going to set it to,
Current index.
okay, if I put current index in there, then have I actually modified the current value?
We didn't pass anything
The
new.
value is the same. I'm not passing anything new. I'm just passing the same value you had already had, so nothing's going to happen. So I can go back here and click. Hey, it's not working. What's going on?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So Caroline keeps telling me what to do, and I'm going in slow steps so that you can see it. I don't just want to call on select. The parent needs to know not just that a button was, doesn't need to know that a button was clicked. It needs to know which button was clicked. So I have to tell the parent which button was clicked. I can't just call on select. That just says one of the buttons was clicked. I need to tell it exactly which button was clicked. So which button, what distinguishes these buttons?
The event.
The index.
Index.
The index differs between them, okay? So now I'm going to change this so that instead of an empty no parameter function, I'm going to pass an index.
Okay.
So I have to change this to call, make it an arrow function. I'm going to pass. Let me forget to do the arrow function because this is what you'll probably do. Oh, I'm going to call I. I'm going to pass I.
Yeah.
Doesn't that look good? That's exactly what you
wish-
want. I want to call on select and pass it the index of the button that got clicked.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Return
But
function.
what's the problem?
Void.
What's the problem?
It's a void.
Function still returns void.
Yep, I forgot exactly. I forgot to make it an arrow function. I love how TypeScript finds those and fixes them for me. Okay, I don't know where that came from. All right.
That's very
Save.
nice, clean.
Why do I have?
You see how clean it's like very
Mhm.
nice.
Yep, it is. It's nice and clean. I love that. Okay, so now I can change this. I don't want to set this to current index. I want to set it to whatever was passed to me. How do I do that?
Yeah, this is, I don't understand. How can you go and grab it from the child? Because as a parent, you can do that?
No, it's passed as a prop in the function. So I declared my arrow function to take no parameters. But if you look down at this, it actually has a parameter. See, it has a parameter, the index. So this up here actually needs to have, this arrow function is going to be passed. When that arrow function gets called, it's going to get called with an index. So I need to declare this to take an index as a parameter
Inside,
right there. And then what do I want to do with that index?
move it into the set.
Yes, that's what I want to do with, I want to call set current and index with it. Okay, now I go 2, 0, 5. Do these still work?
That's confusing.
4, next,
The prop.
3.
Oh, wow.
Okay, see how this goes?
Yes,
All right,
it's the props.
it's all in the props.
It's everything's in the props.
It's in
A lot.
it's in the props and the state and the events.
It's everything.
No, it's just those three things. That's all you ever have to worry about. The layout, which includes the props, the state, and the events. Once you get those down, React just works. Okay.
then it's the props.
Okay, whichever one of those three you're struggling with, figure that out. Okay, any questions on this?
Yeah, you know why I'm confused about it, because I don't know I thought that like we are passing things to the parent. But you mentioned that parent only pass things to children, so how this is happening? Is what confuses me.
Yeah, me too, actually, because it's pretty clear, but then the props need to be passed into the parentheses in the children.
So we defining the thing inside the props, and then we like when the
Look. On select, I've declared to be a function that has an index as a parameter. Okay. So when I declare the function that this is the function that will get called, this is the on select function. This right here is this on select function. It needs to be declared the same way. It's going to receive an index. So I'll put an index in there as the parameter. That's the parameter. It's this, here it's parameter, here it's the same parameter,
Okay.
okay?
But
I've
then-
declared it here as it takes a parameter, which is a number named in, and here I've declared it as it takes a parameter.
So it looks like the parameters in the parent are the ones that are creating the functionality in the end, or are they all working together somehow?
Everything works together. The parameters here is just, I know, but then when I declare my arrow function in here, that I need to make it look the same as whatever this is gonna pass it. So if it passes it a number, I need to declare a number. If it's gonna pass it an event, I'm gonna pass it an event. So you've already done this. You've done on click in inputs, you've done on click, and you put an event in there. It's the same thing.
So just question, so, and so this is the situation, what's happening, so the child component says, okay, I got clicked, then it's, as you mentioned, it doesn't do anything, just send what it has, to, the parent, and then the parent figure out how to do the logic.
Yes, it's the parent, all the logic goes in the parent.
The parent is manipulating the
The
data.
parent's in charge. The parent knows all, does all the thing. It's manipulating its state and then passing that state down into the children.
Then manipulate, then send it back to children.
So you've done this already. You've done the same thing up here. You like this, where you do a parameter, you put an E in there when you did your on click, because this function is going to get called and it's going to get passed an event. Okay. So it's the same thing. This function is going to get called and it's going to get past the index. So you declare it up here to take an index. And then you do whatever logic is you want to do with it.
Why did you use event inside the van? Oh, you're just doing an example.
I just did an example. Yeah.
I felt like, oh.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
This is really good example, actually.
Yeah, this is.
Okay. One last thing I want to do, if I look at these prev and next buttons, they're pretty much the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah. I was like,
What difference on them? The only difference is the label and then the name of the event. Well, I could name the event the same. So if I change them to say like on click in both cases, then they'll be identical.
Uh-huh.
And the only difference will be the label.
Mm-hmm.
So let me combine these two into one. I'll just call it button. All right. I'm going to change this to just be on click. On click. Button. Now I need to pass in a label as a prop. Let's see, on click. So now I'm going to do a label, which is a string. Pass the label in here. And I'm just going to take this and put label. All right. And then I can get rid of this one. I don't need it anymore. I need to go up here and just change these to be buttons. And instead of on prev, it's on click.
the same name as.
And then I need to pass in a label,
Which will be the name.
pre.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, that one I would
Like
do
that.
too.
Okay.
Do the same.
So it's the same, exactly the same as it was before. All I did was get rid of one component and change it down.
We just leave it. I'm just gonna
Okay.
ask you here.
So I could take this and use that button prop here as well. So,
but this
that.
is on line 64, you basically created your own prop, your own functionality.
yeah,
And then you sent over to the parent what it wanted you to, what you want to do.
yep,
with
yep.
it. Okay.
Okay. Just for funsies, I'll change this to button. And I'll do label equals I. And what's wrong with that? Oh, it has to be a string. So let me do string of I.
Yeah,
And then I need, oh, I'm passing style, so I need to change this to take, I don't want to pass the style, I want to pass the background color. Be light blue. Let me see. So if it's selected, I want the background to be light blue, otherwise undefined. And then up here, I'm going to make the background be optional, and it's going to be a string. And I could probably be fancier than that, but I won't. BKG, and then I'm going to say style equals background
Oh,
background color
I'm gonna
BKG.
pass it, but
Okay, like that.
oh, like this,
Yeah, so I can do that, and then why do I have an error here?
because you put the capital button.
yes, capital, so now it's function call, not an element.
Oh, I didn't want the child. That's the problem. I can actually go back and do that and get rid of this. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Okay,
Oh, wow.
so now it works.
So
Okay.
now become a function call inside another.
well, why did you put the button, the capital, because it's a function?
No, I wanted to use this component.
Yeah, no, it's that we're using it.
I'm using this component here,
Oh, I see.
just like up in the rotating banner, I use that button as well.
Okay. Oh, well, I see.
Yeah, I'm using that uppercase button up
Oh,
here.
you reuse the component inside of another component?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you can put components inside of components, inside of components, inside of components.
So it's just calling the button.
The power of React, it's pretty awesome.
Dang.
Okay,
Can you?
So if indicators was in a separate file, you would have to import the buttons component in that file, right? To be able to
that's
use.
correct. So if I move indicators into another file, I'm going to have to move the button component into another file as well. Okay, and then
Correct. And then import buttons in it, and then import buttons and indicators in the parent component.
correct. I'll have to export it here and export it there, and then this will have to import that, and the parent will have to import both of these.
Got it.
Yep. Okay. All right. Okay, stop the recording.